Okay, so we're at 4 o'clock now. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Hoping you can see us and hear us all right. Let us know in the chat if you can't, but we're super excited to have you here at GitHub Galaxy and the EMEA Productivity Chat. And we're going to be talking about GitHub's tooling and resources and how they're uniquely designed for developers. So I'm one of your hosts today. My name is Senna, and I'm a solutions engineer here at GitHub. I support EMEA customers and just getting the most out of GitHub Enterprise, whether that's security, DevOps, some of the productivity stuff we'll be talking about today, authentication, you name it. And I'm currently based in Amsterdam, and I've got a background in front-end development. So, I really wish some of the tools we're going to talk about today were around back in my day. So super excited to show you this stuff, and I'm very happy to be joined by Tug, my colleague. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I am Tug Grall, and I am solution engineer like Senna. And as you can guess from my accent, I am French and based in France, and in France. And like Senna, I'm helping the EMEA customer with everything related to GitHub and DevOps. And myself, I am more of a backend developer, focusing mostly on Java in the past, but now we have to touch many technologies. And like Senna, I would have loved when I was software engineer, I was coding every day to have all the tools that we will talk about today.
Yeah. Alrighty. So a couple of housekeeping things just about the Goldcast platform that we're going to be using today. We recommend you use Chrome, and if you can't see us, you can try refreshing your screen, but we'll also help you out with that stuff in chat. And the main thing is our goal today is for this to be a conversation. We really want to talk to you, and there are a few ways we can do that. So there is a chat as well as a video Q&A. And for chat, you can chat with others, share ideas and opinions. Also, we have our chat moderators, Morgan and Anton. And if you're ever thinking as a part of this session that you want to dive deeper into something and talk more specifics, there's going to be a request a demo button at the top of your screen. And you can click that and you can just fill out a few things just so we know how to get back in touch with you. And on the video Q&A piece, so there's a raise your hand button, and you can raise your hand to come on video and talk with us. There are going to be times where we're going to specifically ask you to come on stage when we do dedicated Q&A at the end of the session. But don't be shy. If you have any thoughts you want to share, any questions that you want to ask, please raise your hand. We would love to talk to you. We want to learn from you. We want you to learn from each other as well. And we're also going to be participating in a few polls throughout the session. So just to understand a little bit more about you and how you're relating to some of the scenarios that we're talking about. So yeah, feel free to raise your hand during the polls, or really any part of the session. We'd be happy to have you. And you're just going to hear from me for a few more minutes before I pass it over to Tug. Okay, before we go into our content, I think it'd be interesting to learn a little bit more about you and the perspective that you have. So I'm just going to stop sharing and open up our first poll. So hopefully you all can see this, but yeah, just curious, what area of DevOps or DevSecOps strategy are you most focused on right now? And by the way, if there's some other focus that you have that you want to share with us, we'd love to hear that as well. So nice. It seems like a lot of people are focused on accelerating high quality software development and doing that efficiently. So that's really cool to hear. Also see there's not a ton of, I guess securing the code you ship is probably the smallest focus, but that's great because we also have a session on security tomorrow. So yeah, it's cool to see all of you all here. And we've got almost 250 votes, so nice. Okay, so I'm going to jump into back in the slide deck. Also, wow, I'm seeing a lot of people coming in from a lot of different countries, so that's great to see too. Okay, so to introduce our session, I'm just going to open my screen again, and cool. Okay, so just to set up what Tug is going to show you and why you're here today. So what is GitHub Enterprise? Basically, we're focused on building the best platform for the best developer experience, and that informs everything that we do, and everything that you can do from planning to production. We want to give you something that you can do all within one single integrated platform, and you as a developer are empowered all the way through. And no matter how you visualize this, so I know, we're representing this as a circle here in this cycle, but we really want to be the platform that can help you do all of your work in the same context, intersourcing and collaborating together, sharing code, while also doing it securely and efficiently in a way that developers typically already are familiar with in their work and personal projects, in open source work. So just getting that in an efficient and secure enterprise platform is how we think of GitHub Enterprise. And yeah, the developer experience. So this is core to everything that we do at GitHub, to use GitHub to build GitHub, but also how we can build tools for you and your company to be successful in DevOps, which at the end of the day it's for your developers. And what do we mean by the developer experience? So you're going to see examples of all of this later, but we want to focus on this experience in every step of the software development lifecycle. So from planning things with tasks to actually developing the code, to securing it, securing the code that you're developing, and then automating every step in between. And you'll see some really cool demonstrations about this too with Tug. And really quickly, we actually worked with a company called Forrester, which is a research company. And recently, they studied the impact of GitHub Enterprise on customers, on a number of customers. And we want to share with you their report that they came out with. And it shows the whole, the total economic impact of using GitHub. And during their studies, they found a lot of amazing metrics, ranging from, for a 3-year return on investment of GitHub, a whopping 433%, to all of these improvements in developer productivity, as well as managing tools and your infrastructure. So someone in the chat is going to share a link to this Forrester report, but take a look at that, and hopefully you can see how we can help you in all these different areas of your business and for your developers. Okay, before I hand it over to Tug one last time, I do want to share another poll. So I'm going to kick that off in Goldcast. So let me open this one. Okay. Now we're going to talk a lot about Copilot and Codespaces, and just curious from the audience, have you used either of these tools yet? I see a good amount of people saying neither, and that's actually great because Tug is going to show you all about that. And kind of related, I would love to ask the audience too. Yeah, does anybody have problems onboarding new developers and setting up new environments? Because there's a lot of things we can talk about there. And yeah, I would love to hear from you. And I actually see Cynthia in the that's raising her hand to come on to stage. Actually, it just got retracted. But yeah, anybody have common problems here? And in the meantime, I see a lot of things in the chat actually about it being a nightmare. But in the meantime, maybe I can ask you, Tug, because I know that you use Codespaces a lot. What do you really like about it?
Yeah, one of the things that I really like about Codespaces is the fact that when I want, part of our jobs and now we are building a lot of demonstrations. And we have to switch project all the time. So one day we have to show a Java application, the next day we have to show something different. For this specific task, it's very exciting because we have almost nothing to do. We click and it's done. If you look in a more real life, so because not everybody is building demos, is if you want to contribute to a project where you don't work on it every day. So for example, Sena and myself, we can, if we want, contribute to the source code of GitHub itself, because every developer at GitHub can use Codespaces to build GitHub. And last weekend, I think it was last weekend, I was kind of working on a contribution for one of the CodeQL actions. And I use Codespaces, just clicking on the button. And if you look at it from a team, when you want to ease the adoptions or the onboarding of new developer, or more importantly, the inner source, having people working together, it's very nice if you can put Codespaces available on your project, you one click. As a last point, and please react if you relate to one of the things that I have said, is you probably know that today every user of GitHub has 60 hours every month of Codespaces. So if you want to contribute to a project, an open source project that is present on github.com as a starting point, click on Codespaces. If you are owning on your own private or your personal project, add a Codespaces with few clicks. Like that, everybody will be able to help you on your project. So any experience with either contributing on a project with a one click or helping a team member with Codespaces somewhere else, please share if you have it.
One thing I see in the public chat is from Joey, how they're very happy with Copilot, but they're still waiting for the GPT-4 integration. Joey, I think that's a great question. So if you want to raise your hand, we can have you on stage to do that.
So Vladimir, have you tested Codespaces on your iPad? It's not an app, but it's a web application. So just click and you will see. I've done some very basic stuff on my iPad myself with Codespaces. It's not my main tool, but you should try because it's working. Do not if you have tried, please share.
And I also see something from John that's worth mentioning. So they're very interested in the audit tracking of code to show that an artifact has been tested and that tests have passed, and or spot code that's been updated, pushed through without testing. So I can kind of see how some of our new Copilot announcements on the pull request integration can really help there.
I think it's a good time for me to show you a few things of the product. Let me share my screen. And as part of what I want to share with you, as we mentioned, is it coming? Yeah. So we talk about resources for developer and tooling. So I will start with few resources that are very important that you know about, just to be sure that you can find information. So you have obviously the github.com features, give you a link to different parts of the product, especially the documentation, but also giving you access to something very exciting, all the new stuff we are pushing. Every time we build something, we very often create early access to the feature. So you see Copilot for pull requests that Sena was mentioning, Copilot chat, Copilot for docs, and you have many, many tools like that. So please go to /features, go to the feature previews and join the waitlist. You will kind of discover many things as a developer. Another part that it's resources, github.com, so where we publish many white papers on best practices for developers. So do not hesitate to go there. And one of my favorite places is the changelog. So when you go to the changelog, the way you go to it, it's using the blog. You go to the blog, or you can subscribe to the feed, and you click on changelog. On changelog, it's every time we push something on the product, we make a small announcement. We make some news. So you see today, today we just announced that we have some rules, new things that has been published, dependency graph to give information. And I was looking yesterday about, for example, generate a software bill of material from your dependency graph. So do not hesitate to, on a regular basis, go there, and you can filter the changelog based on the features that you want to see. So it's one of the very interesting resources when you are looking for or learning more about GitHub. So in addition to this, a big part, so today we are in a forum, so we will have an opportunity to discuss and share some experience just after my demonstration. But remember that we also have a GitHub community that is very active. So we use GitHub discussions, as you probably recognize the UI. And if you have feedback, if you have discussions, do not hesitate to go there. Finally, an important part also will be the roadmap. You want to know what is coming, go to the roadmap. It's organized by the different product features. Talking about the product feature, it's a time for me to show you, to share with you some of the stuff that I wanted to share with you. So one part is, Senna said that when we work with GitHub, you want to have from the planning to the production, from the planning to the deployment. One of the features where the development team of GitHub is investing a lot, based on a lot of feedback we have from you as a user, from you as a community user or enterprise user, it's all the GitHub issues and projects. And as you see, we have a very complete dashboard where you can customize the UI, you can have a very nice backlog, you can group by repositories or any of the fields, you can create custom field, for example, for sprints. And at any time, you can add a new field with different types. So you see, you can add new type of field inside your dashboard in the way you want to keep track of your applications and your issues. And then when you have all the issues, you will just choose different way of representing it as a simple dashboard on Kanban using Sprint for iteration. I like this one when you organize the work. And something that I like is also the kind of the roadmap where you can use. So if, for example, if I want this issue to be on my current sprint, I will add it. It will automatically match the roadmap, and I can move the issue in the different sprints. So you have a good vision about what's happening. And obviously, and we use that internally a lot at GitHub. Every time we want to communicate, we organize the work, it's using GitHub issues. And when we work on the issues, we continue to add small features for the developers to make sure that it's the best tool for you. One example was, I think it was pushed last week, is you see we have capabilities to create task list, and you have into this a capacity to switch any task item into an issue, so organizing kind of a hierarchy on next step. And in addition to that, one of the features that I like, I don't know for you, but you have some of the markdown syntax. Sometimes I forgot how it works. You see, you have this command, /command. Just use the / command in the issue, and you will have some help about what do you want to do. Do you want to create a code block? Do you want to create a table? One that is quite nice is a detail that, when you want to write some code here and have as a preview, as a work, a nice kind of interaction. So just having this tool available as on any project is quite nice. And if I go back to this, you also have a way to make some automations. On one of the tasks, the first task you should do is this one. So you go to the workflow, and you make sure that you auto-add issues to the project. So automatically from a specific project, you will add the issues that you create on your repositories in your specific dashboard. So a lot of work, a lot of exciting stuff you do as a developer to manage your project and communicate with your product owners and your project team. Also, we can continue to integrate. You can always work with your favorite tools. If you don't like this, or if you have an existing tools, you can work with third-party tools like Jira or Azure Board for your project management in the enterprise. So when you are working on your project, one of the first tasks you will do is contributing to the project, giving access to the developer and building the pull request. I have an existing pull request. And what I wanted to show here is the fact that, first of all, you have the link with the issue that will be closed automatically. So all the workflows about your project management will automatically be linked. So you see the link of this issue to the pull request, the dashboard that you are using, the project board, all the commits. And a very important part when we talk about automation, security, and you said you on the first poll, you use DevOps on GitHub to make sure that you deliver safe, often on safer software. Security is embedded on tomorrow. Senna will do another discussion about security, but you see here, I have an anomaly that has been raised. I have a risk of SQL injections. If I go to the detail, I will find some information. And as always with GitHub, we always want to work in a collaborations, helping people, helping each other. The same way you will do in your open source project, when you ask for a review, you can always ask for help. Personally, when I work on security, I don't necessarily have all the skills. If I don't have the skills, I will ping somebody from my team, or if we have a specific security team, I will ping the security team to say, I need some help here. So quite a nice interactions on collaborations to people, just to make sure it's easy to work together. And in this context, when you do this, you can also quickly fix it. And this is where, for me, it's a very, very, very interesting when you see the benefits of Codespaces. So I am on this pull request.
Hey,
Suppose
Tug.
Yeah.
We actually had a question. I was wondering if before we go
Sure.
into the Codespaces, I see that Mobin has raised their hand. So Mobin, I'm gonna approve you to come on stage and turn on your video and yeah, just ask away. And while they're actually joining, there was a few questions that we got about I think projects. So Ash asked a question about whether we support Scrum templates as well as Kanban boards.
So you see the Kanban board, so we support that. On the way, we don't have specific today templates for Scrum itself, so like user story and all the hierarchy. People can build it by organizing their tasks differently. But we have no specific template today to have a specific way of working based on a specific methodology. We let the freedom today. And this is typically one of the things it's important to share with us in the community discussions about what you would like to see, which type of template you would like to see into GitHub projects.
Awesome. I think Mobin might still be trying to join, but we also got another question that was I was checking the public chat and we got a suggestion to use dark mode, which seems to be
yes, I should be able to do that. Not that I'm using it very often, but I should be able to do it. I don't even remember where it is.
I don't either, to be honest.
I look stupid. I will not search it. But if it was early morning, it will be dark because it's automatically switching from one to another on my.
I love that accessibility feature. So we got another question on the security the security topic. So Is it possible to run code scanning manually on a particular branch?
So yes, so you have different way of doing that. So if you are using a public repository or if you have GitHub Enterprise, you can at any moment run CodeQL from your machine on your branch on other report. Also, what I do when I run on my project, if I want to run on a specific branch, I will show you some. I was not planning to show that, but I will just quickly show. Is simply create a workflow that you use to work on a specific application. So what I have done here in my action, I have created a workflow to kind of run the project manually. So I will run the workflow on a specific branch. I choose which branch I want to test. You will scan and you will push the result of the scan into the branch. So if I go, so suppose I execute the thing on the branch, you go to your security board, and here you will be able to see the finding. If you want to use GitHub and share that with your developers, with your security team, you can go to here and then you will choose, oh, let's show you the different issues that has been found on this branch. So you can do it directly from GitHub using workflows. This is what I like to do most of the time, because like that we can capture and have all the anomaly here and start to work with developer, with the team, assigning an issue, for example, to work. So either you work locally or you just work into a GitHub action. So code scanning is available for every public repositories, and you have to be on GitHub Enterprise plus Advanced Security to use that on your private repositories. And it's working on-prem on the cloud. So good part about security. How do you work on this security issue? So I am on my pull request. I have some work to do. Me or somebody else has to do this to fix this. With a simple click, I will be able to go in Codespaces, and it will run the environments. This is what I have. This is what I done here. Oh, I will restart it. So you see it stopped. So let me restart it from the pull request. So it will start automatically my IDE. And in this case, by default, my configuration, I said that I want to use the web interface. And to please, because we like to work as a team, I will switch to the dark mode when it's done. But what's something I want to show about the Codespaces part that you may not know is at any time from when you work with Codespaces, not only you can use the web interface, but if you have an existing instance, you can switch to different tools. So you can use a browser base. This is what I use as part of the demonstration. You can use Visual Studio Code. So in this case, Visual Studio Code will be the IDE, but communicating with the container on the cloud. JetBrains Gateway, same system. And if you are Python and using REPL, you can use Jupyter Labs for the same way. The idea is to have the container that contains all your information about the code and the execution. And if I go back to my IDE, here, you saw that inside the pull request, I had an anomaly in my code. And this anomaly has been raised in the pull request, and you see it's visible here. I asked the security office to fix. So here it's a basic SQL injection. So I can click and go back to the pull request. What I wanted to show here, it's kind of how you can use, in addition to have this Codespace tool that is one click and you start, is that also the full story about how we work with all tools like Copilot. So as part of my project, when I start Codespaces, I have the dev container. And in this dev container, I have configured my IDE to use Copilot tools, SARI Viewer, different tools that I want to use. And you can also, and this is what is very interesting to help the onboarding of new developers, you can create specific configurations. For example, in your application, you need a database. Just create a Docker Compose, make a reference to your IDE, This is really the Codespaces part. And you have another container that will contain the database. Like that, you can work with Postgres database in Codespaces. And I was telling that as a contributor of the project, when you want to join GitHub as an employee and you want to work on GitHub source code, you have many services like MySQL, Redis, Elastic, so on that is available. Let's go back to fixing my bug. I am lazy, so I will use Copilot. I will not even think about what I have to do. I will just select the code, use Copilot Labs extension, and I will ask these extensions to fix the bug. And if it fixes the bug, you see he has changed the code by switching to a prepare statement, so a better code. I can also do something different by doing a custom work, for example, saying fix SQL injection risk, add try catch to make it more robust, and finally extract SQL statement as string. So by doing this, I am asking Copilot to reformat, rework the work, and in all the steps, it will work this way. So just before finishing this demonstration, when you see that I can do, I will just show one thing is somebody talk about GPT-4. You may have seen the announcements earlier this week about Copilot X and the new tools. If I take exactly the same tool or the same issue, as inside my using Copilot X, so the new version of Copilot, it's this working locally, and you see I'm using a dark mode to make the team happy. And in this case, I will use different parts. So for example, I can use the chat window. So instead of going outside and going to ChatGPT and ask for information, I can say, okay, explain the code. He will explain the selected code. And he will describe it. So I am in the context of these applications. And I can say also, do you see any issue with selected code? In this case, what is interesting is you see you have a risk of SQL injection here. It's telling me I have to be careful. So I say fix I can do the same as before, fix. And in this case, a big difference with what you have seen in the past with Copilot or what you have used, I have the code in the context here, and I can potentially click here and just replace the part of the code directly for here. It's not only suggesting the code, but also helping and trying to understand the code. And I can do that also as one of the features of the new Copilot we are working on will be to say, I can do exactly the same type of interactions with my keyboard and having the suggestion here. So for example, add, try, catch, block. Commenting itself. So let's see if it's working this time. It's a very early version of it, so we still have some weird behavior. But you see the concept. I can work directly from the window here. So if we see it, you will have kind of an easy way for the developer to work from giving an issue, giving access to many things for the project management, Codespaces to start, or work locally on your machine with some AI work. And as mentioned by Senna, we are also working on improving the pull request to make some, for example, when you have a pull request, make automatic suggestions. So currently it's a video available on the blog post, but it's some kind of example to get information about the project to make the developer more productive by helping with the tasks that you are doing quite often and you want to accelerate. So I will stop here, and if you have any question, we will be happy to answer and share. I think it's also your time to kind of share your experience.
We actually got a hand raise from Gonzalo. So Gonzalo, I'm going to approve you to come on stage. Talk about your Copilot experience.
Yes, so well, I'm PhD student and I'm developing some software. And when I use it, I mainly like write some code. And when I'm writing that code, I like learn how to prompt it. So for example, I can put a description of what I want to write. And I say this function does X, and then I wait until Copilot like start generating something, and from there I can take it, modify it. Sometimes it's basically good. Sometimes it needs some fixes, but it helps me like a lot. It has speed me up like at least a 30% of what I've done before. And also when I'm doing like several structures or things that follow a pattern, it auto completes like I don't know, I'm doing a function and then different modifications of the function, and it follows the pattern. So it like I do one and GitHub Copilot do the 5 next ones. So that has been awesome. But now we have this chat also, and I'm learning more like about what other features I can use to speed even more what I was doing. And I used ChatGPT as well to solve these questions. So now I'm happy that I have that in GitHub, like in my VS Code. When I'm programming, I can talk to the Copilot right there. I don't need to copy and paste code and then give context to ChatGPT. It will be everything happening in my like IDE.
But this is what to start with the last sentence you said is a big part of what the product team is doing and what we are pushing is really to allow you to stay focused. Stay in the IDE, do everything you want into the IDE. And what you said about also the 30% or whatever the numbers you used, it's very important to always mention it's called Copilot, right? It's GitHub Copilot. You are the pilot. So you are always responsible of validating the code, doing the CI, doing the security check. Even if over time, what you can see between when we had the project launch 18 months ago, between December with Copilot for Business and a new version of Copilot in February, we improve and we try to always improve the suggestion.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your experience, Gonzalo. And we also have Ues on the that joined as well. And I think you had a question about issues in Kanban support. Is that right?
Yes, but I guess we can focus on the topic. Like, feel free to answer this whenever.
Or anything, anything you want to talk to us about.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm very happy with Copilot. I tried it before. It's part of my workflow. But one interesting question I want to ask is, are you guys considering safe refactoring? Like, so in a sense, one thing about GitHub Copilot is it's nice, but with big projects, especially when you refactor things or when you get suggestions from GitHub Copilot, it would be interesting to see like some safe refactoring approaches happening.
Refactoring, you mean code refactoring?
Yes, code refactoring. Yeah.
So a nice way to answer. Yes, we are, but we have to keep in mind that it's a brand new project and it's a brand new product, and we have to choose our battle on how to kind of organize. So one of the things was, first, if you look at what I showed today, for example, on Copilot, before this week, I could not modify my code with Copilot. It was always adding new code. Now we can start to modify the code. So technically, we can start to see where it's coming. We had a very interesting video on githubnext.com in one word, githubnext.com, where you have another demo on the pull request where it's not really refactoring, but it's moving from one library to another, moving from PyTorch to TensorFlow or TensorFlow to PyTorch. So this is the beginning, and refactoring, it's part of one of the use case we have in mind when we talk about Copilot. And I see an interesting question: will Copilot take our job? yes, the boring part of our job about refactoring, yes, it will help us. But thinking about the product, thinking about the business, implementing the business, it's not about Copilot doing it. It's just helping you to do the jobs. And especially writing tests, for example, building UI, when you have a lot of repetitive tasks, you still have to do the design. You still have to organize on the user experience. I don't think it's I'm not worried at least myself, but you have to learn. I think it's very important for all of us to start to work with AI on our daily job, to see where it will really help to make us more productive and where we have to be focusing in terms of learning. It's a nice way for me, for example, to learn. I don't know what was your experience in the crowd about working with Copilot, but it's helping me to discover a new API. I was playing around with Azure Cognitive Services, one of the cognitive AI service from Azure. I was learning faster than before because a part of the code was generated or suggested for me. Then the logic I can implement it in myself. Any experience about learning technology or learning a framework when a library that you want to use? I see that some people said about mentoring juniors. Thanks, you I don't know what was your name, if it's your name or the name of the company.
There's also I think I'm getting an echo, but there's also an interesting question about, it was from Kevin actually. So Kevin, if you want to come on stage, we'd love to have you talk about this question. But he asked, I hope Copilot can make my pull request reviews with kind request changes comments. So I just think it's interesting to think about like the way that this like Copilot tool can basically make suggestions to us and like the way it can word these things. So I think that would be that would be really cool too. There were some other questions that we got in the chat as well. So there was one about, this was pretty early on that was asked from Gregory. And Gregory also wanted to invite you on here, but they asked about like how we can protect the code from their organization and guarantee that code isn't going to be moved to the Copilot database or like exploited, and how this is very important for critical industries. So I was curious to hear from you, Gregory, on what kind of industry you're working in and like how you see yourselves being able to use these AI-assisted pair programming tools. And I was going to share in the chat some information about our privacy fact for Copilot and how it talks a little bit about how Copilot for business, like in particular, as opposed to Copilot for individuals, doesn't retain any code snippet data. So that might be something that's interesting for the privacy folks on the call as well.
And you probably know already that GitHub.com is hosting millions of lines of codes from private repositories for many enterprises on the cloud. When you work with GitHub, you are in a safe place, and you have some specific term of services you can read about Copilot that explain exactly what we do or don't do with the data. And on Copilot for Business, the only time we use your source code is to generate the suggestions, and we remove it. So IntelliJ, you can use it already with Copilot, but you don't have necessarily all the nice feature, but you have the code suggestions in line, and you also have the list of the top 10 suggestions. Darko wanted to share his experience with Copilot, so maybe it's an opportunity for us to take time for that.
Yes, I'll bring them on.
Hi.
Hello.
Darko here. I just wanted to say So I'm working. So hello from Germany. I'm working for a German consulting company located here in Frankfurt, Germany, and we evaluated GitHub Enterprise for our company. So all our developers or our internal solution is GitHub Enterprise now. And what we also did, we evaluated GitHub Copilot and we rolled it out for all our employees. So every developer working for Prodina is the name of the company, has the ability to get a license and is using it. So we're using it depending on, every developer can use what he wants. So some using IntelliJ, some are using NeoVim, by the way, and also Visual Studio Code. So that's what they use. And we have a feedback group, an internal one, and people are constantly giving some feedback. And sure, it happens that GitHub Copilot creates some code which you actually cannot use directly. But I would say 95% of the time, GitHub Copilot creates code that really, it's I would describe it like this. It's not on the strategic level, it's more on the tactical level. So if it has a good context understanding, and I internally have shown a demo, like I'm creating a new Go program. I'm defining, I need a main method, I need a router, I would like to create an HTTP handler, I would like to add this handler to the router. And I just wrote comments and took all the standard suggestions, and this code was instantly up and running after, I don't know, 20 seconds. And this was so impressive that nearly all the company started using it instantly. And what we are also doing massively is we are doing infrastructure as code using mostly Terraform. And same, so I need a storage account in Azure. I need this. I need a Kubernetes cluster, and it already has a good understanding, pre-filled some values, and it works really amazing. And recently I had something, I don't know, I would have needed maybe half an hour to find something out, and GitHub Copilot instantly delivered what I needed. So it saved a lot of time. And so that's my feedback to you. So I really, we love it, we use it, and what we are currently evaluating is this GitHub Advanced Security. So we plan to roll out this additionally. So I think when we have all the features, Codespaces is not that, I mean, we just one note, so we are a Europe company, we fall under GDPR. So what we have some customers who have concerns because the code snippets are processed in the US for GitHub Copilot. So we explain the customers about the GitHub Copilot data protection policy. But when they decide no, you cannot use Copilot here. So we don't use it for some customers because the customer don't want it. But the majority of customers are relatively relaxed because the company secret is not the source code, rather the data they have, and that's something different. So working well, happy with it. So that's my feedback from my side.
Thanks a lot for this feedback. Yeah.
And one note, go ahead, sorry.
I have one question about the suggestions, because something that is also fun or happening to me when I code, it's almost like it's reading my brain for the next step. So if you start to do, I want the main, I want the router, I want this, sometimes it even starts to generating the next command or the next function that I want to implement.
Yeah.
Like reading my mind.
And somebody asked, it has, I mean, when you start, so you have to learn a few things if you start using GitHub Copilot, for example. So the typical approach is when you do an HTTP router, you have to have a handler. So if you create the router first, it doesn't know that you want to use an external handler. So therefore, it makes sense to start with the handler. So there is a handler. And then when you create your router, it automatically suggests, hey, let's attach your handler to the router. So you start thinking a little bit in an order to make things in an order that GitHub Copilot understands better what you want, because it reads from your existing code and makes better suggestions. So that's but as I said, our developers are happy and developing some best practices, showing some really impressive examples, what they needed and what came out and could use it. So it's supporting us massively on this, let's call it tactical level. So I as a developer need still to plan how I structure my code, what I need to do, how I do things. But those annoying things like, and where GitHub Copilot extremely shines is when you do repetitive things. So for example, I recently had some large code base. I needed to add OpenTelemetry instrumentation. So this means every method needs to have 2 lines. One is register this into OpenTelemetry and then defer this. And I just click into a method and it instantly suggested the 2 lines with the correct parameters for this method. So, or if you add a property somewhere where other properties are, and all occurrences where you fill up this structure, for example, it automatically adds the new field, for example. So this really helps us and saves a lot of time. So that's really a great product.
And one important part about the context you were mentioning is you have to open multiple tabs inside your IDE, because what we use to the suggestion is your current editor plus open tabs. So you give more context to Copilot. I just want to answer Ali that is asking, does using Copilot means your code is also exposed to Copilot or somehow become public? No. This is not. The important part is when you use Copilot, your IDE is connected using your GitHub user, and you use an API that has private kind of connection using HTTPS and calling API, and we don't keep anything, and we don't use your code to do anything else besides suggestion. We won't use in Copilot for business any of your code to improve the model and this kind of stuff. It's really in a safe place. Thomas was asking you, Darko, is this API first model or is API first method in the way you want it to develop?
What we usually do is I'm a big fan of API first. So either using OpenAPI for describing a REST interface or describing a gRPC interface first, generating the stubs for client and server for it, and then filling up the logic into the methods. If you mean this, right? Yeah. So that's the preferred approach, because normally, for example, I'm currently doing a big project here. We have a front end, we have a back end, we have a dedicated Git repository where we define the Open API. So when we need some new feature, we have a session, we open the Open API, we add new methods or we extend existing properties, and then we tag this, and GitHub Action creates all the generated code and puts it into the GitHub packages, or in case of Git Go, it creates, it synchronizes a neighboring repository. And then the backend guy is picking up the new version of the API. He's adding the functionality. Then we put this on the dev stage, and the front-end guy is then adding the new features to the front end. So that's how I would go with modern development. So it's a decision: are you using REST or gRPC, or are you using GraphQL? That depends on the actual project, but API first for is always a good decision.
Thanks. You wanted to add something? You wait.
Yes. So I just learned something today, which is nice. Is the tabs? So the Copilot is influenced by the tabs. So this means depending on what you open, Copilot can be influenced with it. So for example, if I have a set of code and I have logs, it will be influenced by those two. But then, so one interesting thing I wanted to ask, is there a limit? Because there are certain IDEs I can open a lot of tabs in there by increasing the memory. Would that help, or would that affect it?
So one important part about the behavior of our extension, we don't, if you look in the FAQ or in the documentation, we stay a little vague about what we do and how many lines do we send. It's not because we want to hide anything. It's because we are testing different parts. Today, the way it works is up to 20 tabs will be used. If you use 30, 10 of them will not be used. And I don't know which one, right? But it's so up to 20. And when I work on my project, personally, I open always 5 or 6 tabs. So I will use the core features, the routing part, the testing part, the values that I use in my test, because like that, I have a good context for my application.
So so this is the thing, right? I use tabs like an extension where basically it limits my tab number. So now I'm reconsidering to actually disable that, right? To have 20 tabs open. That's interesting. Yeah.
So we are working on many things around about giving more context to Copilot. One of them is available on GitHub Next. It's still, we don't know if it will go out. GitHub Next, part of them are just really brainstorming. It's interesting to look at the website because you'll see the type of stuff we do. One of them is to be able to use the full repository that is open as a context.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But in the same time, you want also to be able to hide some stuff, because if you have, as Darko said, the value of the enterprise is mostly the data, it's not the code, except if you are doing some very, very specific stuff. But most of the time, it's not the code, it's the data. So we just want to be sure that in the future, we can say something like, don't use this directory don't do anything with Copilot for this directory. So before enabling more files that are not in the control totally of the IDE, we need to have a .copilot ignore. Exactly that, Paul. It's exactly the idea. It's to have exactly that.
There is a page, GitHub Copilot Data Protection Policy. I think if you Google this, you will instantly find this page. And this is how GitHub declares what's happening with the data. In short, yes, data snippets are transferred to the central service in the US, and you have to be aware of that. But on the other hand, the training data for GitHub are the public repositories in GitHub, and not the private ones. And your data, your code, except if it's public, but your private repositories are not part of the training data, so they're not exposed, or not, others will not get your code. That's the policy statements.
Hey, Gregory, welcome to the stage. I think, was it you that asked the kind of like the privacy related question about Copilot?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you to take the time to present the information. So, yeah, my question was related because at this moment in the company, we are evaluating the feasibility to use Copilot, for example. But one of the concerns that we have is related with the, I am not sure how much of the code needs to be sent to the GitHub servers to be analyzed, and what is the destination of the property of this code. Well, I don't know. So, for example, I think 1 week ago or something like this, ChatGPT has a problem with the security breach with the data. So, for example, what happened in a feasibility, I don't know, I am not saying that this is true, but what happened, for example, if it's feasible to ask to Copilot or whatever model, okay, could you give me the top 10, or could you give me a code to maybe to break or to find a backdoor in a specific platform? I don't know if this is feasible or not, but this is some questions that we have in mind to, for example, have to evaluate the possibility to put our code in GitHub, or well, to use Copilot to analyze our code. So yeah, if you can give me some insights or some clues about that, yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
So go.
I think I lost track of the question. Was it about like where it's stored, or?
So you have two parts. We don't do anything with your code besides the suggestion, right? So first of all, we need the code. So we need the code from your IDE, a portion of the code to make the suggestions. Then we remove it. We don't keep anything. What we are trying to do, and I have not tested it, so I should. It's called, it's responsible AI, what we call responsible AI. So if you try with a Copilot chat, it's not available yet. But if you look at, if you try to ask questions that are not correct on what defines the correctness, why it's really the model, you will not have an answer. And I have not tested can you give me a backdoor to this? I don't know. I have not tested that. Maybe we just say, no, I don't want to, because it's not ethical. I don't know. But
yeah, but for example, the code that Copilot used to I don't know, to detect or to predict the much better or the improvement is sent or needs to be sent to the GitHub server, right? So
your code.
Yeah.
Your code, yes, you have three parts kind of when you work with Copilot. So the model has been built on all GitHub public repositories. So this is just a model. When you send your code to Copilot, you use an API server. So your code goes from the IDE, your code, to this API server to make suggestion. When we send it back, we have a filter to remove, for example, SQL injections, to remove public code, and we send back the answers to the user. But the code that is here that you have sent, we remove it after. You have to trust us on this. Yes, you have to trust us. When we say we are removing it, you have to trust GitHub about this.
Yeah, a little question that comes to my mind. If there any, I don't know, contract specification, SLA, I don't know what I think, but if there anything that guarantee that you cannot take this code to train the model?
It's part of the document you sign when you have what you sign. You are supposed to read and sign when you work with Copilot for Business.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you for joining. So we're close to time, but I wanted to invite Christophe on as the last person to ask a question. We have a few more minutes that we can spend with you.
Well, thank you very much. I'm just having this giant revelation with the tabs that just opens up a whole new paradigm in how Copilot functions. And I'm asking myself, because I always have the whole documentation for my project open as a Markdown file. And I'm wondering if that Markdown file also is going to be integrated into what Copilot suggests. Doesn't that mean that you should actually have tickets open as tabs as well? Like whole issue tabs, because then Copilot knows about the feature I'm currently building. Thank you very much about my students.
Yes, it will use as much as possible. So if you have the issue, I have not checked with the issue, but yes. One of the things that I show sometimes is using a SQL statement, data, and all to see that you can generate some content. So yes, he will use as much. If he can relate, yes.
Okay, that's great. I'm working, I have one gigantic file with all my functions in them. So that now means that pretty much Copilot knows about all my functions then? Because the token size, I know for OpenAPI is now with GPT-4 being raised to 25,000 tokens. But we are not using 4, right?
We will in Copilot X, but to answer your question, I don't know how much, because as I said, we don't know exactly how much is sent, and we are working on many, because a big difference between the experience we have with ChatGPT and completion in your IDE, it's the responsiveness. When you work in the IDE, it has to be immediate. It has to be very, very fast. So in this case, we cannot send 25 megabytes of data just to get a better suggestion.
It would explain why it takes a while for me.
You have to trust in the end the company GitHub, which is owned by Microsoft in the end. So you have to trust Microsoft, which it's your decision. But same as when you store your stuff in iCloud, you have to trust Apple. So you need to think about whom do you trust and whom do you don't trust, right? But we are doing a lot with Azure, Microsoft, so we have to trust Microsoft anyways. So GitHub is now Microsoft, so this is a no-brainer in our context.
Sure, I'm with Microsoft startups, so.
Well, Christophe, we love your ceiling. We're all a big fan of your ceiling.
A lot bigger than this. You're seeing this.
Darko, we've also really enjoyed having you on for our Q&A. So as we're getting close to the end of our time, I just wanted to share a slide about our survey and just like the rest of the events that we have for Galaxy. So we've got a great lineup for the rest of the week. Thursday, I'm going to be hosting a security session with Nick. Can't get rid of me, but I'll be there for security. And then there's a really cool one on Friday about collaboration. So really encourage you all to join. And there was a survey link that was sent in the chat. And yeah, we would love to hear your thoughts on what you think about the session. But yeah, thank you so much for all of your questions and your engagement. Tug, any final words?
No, just thank you for everybody to be here, the questions and the people that have came on stage. It was very nice to have you. And share your experience with us every time you can. Thank you very much.
And feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn. It was really nice meeting you all, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your week.